Hello, it's me. So we all know what happens when you take a cube that acts and functions like a cube, turns on the face and everything, and you chop it down to a less-sided puzzle. Chop it down to a tetrahedron. You end up with this, the master RLMinx. And as you already know, it turns just like a 3x3, but looks like a tetrahedron and can shapeshift and do all that fun stuff that we know of. Well, we also know what happens if you take a dodecahedron, like this megaminx, and chop this down. So the equivalent of this to this would be this guy over here. If, of course, we take a dodecahedron and chop it down to a six-sided puzzle, a cube, you end up with this hexaminx. And because it's a modification, it also shapeshifts. This is one of Trey Poom's really great puzzles. If you have an opportunity to get this, I would absolutely recommend getting this. Anyway, but what's fun about it is this is to this as this is to this. Take a six-sided puzzle, take it down to a four-sided, and you have this, which is solved pretty much the same way, but just a little bit more complicated regarding orientation of the center, which you don't get into with this. Take a megaminx, chop it down to a cube, and of course you have the hexaminx. Well, because you have multiple sides, why don't we go further? What if we take the hexaminx and chop it down even further to a four-sided puzzle? Then you end up with this guy, the RLMinx. Put it in a way that's a little bit more consistent. In any case, this and this and this, these are all the same kind of puzzles. They're all really face-turning dodecahedrons. Megaminx, it just turns out that I had to redefine the face. This is the face of this, the same thing as here, but now I have to have it look like it turns on the edge. Well, so too with this. This is what's called an RLMinx, and this is the tetrahedral version of a dodecahedron. This is chopped down to as far as it can go, so it looks very much like this in terms of just its overall structure. But the movement of this puzzle is very similar to this. Here's the center over here, and here's edge, 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 corner, corner, corner. So these are the equivalent pieces over here. See if I can find the red area here. So center, and then you have these little triangular edges. Some of them don't look like triangles anymore, but you've got the ones that join the center from the other side. So you've got three centers that are the same color. Here, you have two centers of the same color, say here and here. Well, if you chop it down even further, then you have to have three centers of the same color in order to have that many sides. So the way this turns is you've got this guy turning around like this, and it shapeshifts just the same way. So really, this is a hexaminx, only down to a triangular version of this. Now, I pulled this guy out just by comparison only because they look the most similar to each other. They're not really the same kind of a puzzle. This is a megaminx, which is the tetrahedral version of a four-layer puzzle, but just in terms of size comparison, they were very similar to each other. So I like seeing the variations in function. This is a face-turning four-layer cube mod, and this is a face-turning dodecahedron megaminx mod. So I thought I'd roll that out just for comparison, but that's actually closer to what this guy is over here. So what does it mean in terms of solving this puzzle? Is there any variations in that? Is there something different? Is there something new within the process of solving this? And the answer is yes, actually. That to solve this is really more like solving this. Same thing with this guy, but there is a variation. Because I have multiple centers that have multiple places that can be equivalent to each other, there is the possibility of getting potential fallacies of false equivocation or apparent parities with this. So I thought I'd wheel this guy out, let it take center stage here, and scramble this and demonstrate it. Well, let's demonstrate the motion. Again, this is a Trey Poom product, as you can tell by the quality. It's hard to believe that this is all just carved out. It's not 3D printed. It shows a lot of hard work with this. But as I'm scrambling it, as I'm turning it, again, this type of shape-shifting, we're still maintaining the relative positions here. But the shape-shifting is more unusual. And as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that I've got two pieces that are kind of equivalent that join centers on both sides. But you can see that you've got a small triangle surrounded by larger triangles. The other thing to notice is that you've got some triangles here that are the same size on both colors. One is a non-dominant and a dominant color, and a dominant and a non-dominant color. And where this looks like is that when you have two large edges that are combining with each other or joining with each other, the edge piece that articulates both of these are large triangles. If you have a small side here and a large side here, you've got the non-dominant or smaller color over here and the larger color over here. So that way we can try to put some order out of the chaos here as we're trying to put it together. So I'll kind of go through the motion of this. Now, it's fairly, because it's so smooth moving, it's really not a difficult one. I've demonstrated certain mods that are a little challenging to move, and a lot of it has to do with perspective. The perspective bending with this comes mostly from trying to keep in mind that this tetrahedron is really a dodecahedron. And if you thought it was tough to do that with something that looks like a cube, imagine what it's going to be like as a triangle. So this one is probably among the more difficult of the super dodecahedrons, so to speak. So I'm going to keep scrambling this up, and as you can see, the more I'm doing this, the more I'm separating things out and turning it into something more of a challenge. So we'll take it from there. Abracadabra. Okay, so I took this out of anything that resembles its native shape. So rather than look like this now, and rather than look like this, it's got its own very strange, almost ball shape to it. So it almost looks like it's a ball. So we're going to go through the process of solving this and see what comes out of this. See what new things this can offer regarding challenges, that just by taking it to a different shape like that. Now, despite that, it actually does maintain something of a dodecahedron form, which is kind of easier to see. This almost looks more like what you'd expect to see with the center of a dodecahedron. Here's our center here, and here's our triangle. So you can see the triangles. It almost looks like a bizarre version of this, which it really is. Here's our center, here's our edges, and here's our corners. And the corners basically look alike. Some of the corners have just one color, some have two colors, so we're going to have to siphon that out there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll start off with one side. Well, which one? We'll start off with a green one, so we'll just do one at a time. Now, I know that these solid green colors are going to join one green center with another green center, so I might as well see which one it binds to, which one it belongs to. And orientation is going to be an issue. Now, when I moved it here, I noticed that this looked a little bit better on this side here, but not exactly. So move this up here. Nope, not quite yet. Now, I've got a couple to choose from. Now, how about this? This doesn't look quite right here, so I have to go based on how it feels. So this one looks pretty good. Let's move these out of the way so that you can see this a little bit better. But this looks pretty good. This is flush over here. So I'm going to say that this belongs in this configuration. So now I'm going to just match it to any one of these other green centers. Now, I seem to have equivalencies here. It doesn't really matter which one, or so I think. I don't know. We'll see. Does this belong here? Not really. It's got a little bit of a cleft there. So I'm going to keep orbiting around until this seems to work. Doesn't seem to work on that side. What about this one over here? Well, let's try it. And this seems to work. So I'm going to say this works fine. So this is pretty good. So I've got this in line with this one. So now I'm just going to find the other green wedge and apply it to this guy here. So let's see where it is. Could be anywhere around it. Here it is, so all the way over here. So what I'm going to do is bring this into where it matches up with this side. Not here. Turn, turn. Once again, if you ever have an opportunity to get a Trapum product, you must take the opportunity. Anyway, no, not there. This is my final hope. And yes, this seems to match pretty well. So now this has to come into here, and if it doesn't, I've got to do some wheeling and dealing, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so I know these two edges are in place, and these are now oriented correctly regarding each other. Now there's another green wedge that goes in between these guys, but we don't need to be there yet. Now here's a green and here's a white, but this green doesn't match up with this, and this white doesn't match up with this. So perhaps it's this. Now, I know that there's going to be a large triangle, so this is more of a qualifier. This might belong here. So right next to this is a large triangle, and this fits pretty well here, but not so much with this side. So I'm going to turn this out of the way and orbit this center around. This is basically supercube style solving, or super dodecahedron solving. And this seems to fit here pretty well. So I'm going to say okay. Now it's very subtle sometimes, so this might not be correct. Seems like it is to me. And now this to red. So I'm going to find a red one. Now it's going to be a small green one. Small green and red. So it looks like it's maybe this guy over here. So let's wheel this guy around. And I'm going to want to see if this matches. And it does. Does it match with this side? No. So I'm going to move this down out of the way and just keep moving this red around until it finds something that fits better. Nope. And turn. So this is one of those puzzles where the color can't guide you. It's got to be the shape. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense there. And this makes much more sense here. So I'm going to put this in so this is all fine. Now for the last edge, it's going to be a large triangle, dominant green, so it's got to be non-dominant red, because I've already got a dominant red over here. Actually, is what I can recall, I think it's the same size rather. So this guy, it's got to be this guy over here. So turn. This seems to match up here, so it has no choice but to match up here. So that's good. Now let's see if I can do it with the green and red one. So that's good over here. So basically, I have my cross, or my star, as it were. So all these edges are in. Now it's just a matter of getting the corners. Well, if we take a look here, these greens, there's going to be another green one over here. So this is going to be a pure triangular green, which is this one. Now I want you to notice something. With everything we've learned about how to do these mods, I just slipped that in there. So this doesn't have a specific place it has to go. This can turn one way or the next. This can rotate in 30-degree increments and still be okay, which means I'm saying that's it's equivalent with any degree of rotation. I could run into trouble with that if I falsely equivocate, but we'll have to come back to that at other layers. So here's going to be a green and white, so I'm going to look for a green and white. Now is it going to be the majority white or majority green here? Well, I think that's going to be decided upon, predicated on by the dominant color here. In other words, the larger one. So because this is large dominant green and small white, I think it's going to be the dominant green corner with a small white corner, kind of like this one is set in over here. So let's find another green and white, but with the green and white, that is what I'm looking for. If one exists, right over here. So if I tried to put this one in, let's see what happens. I'll move this in here and up. So you can see it doesn't quite make sense. So let's try this one. Move it just below and do my RI, DI, well, RDs, but I don't have to go through the full thing. So I solve my megaminxes much like I solve my 3x3s. Turn, turn, and turn. Okay, so this is looking good over here. So that actually works. Now over here, this is going to be, well, I see three colors, green, red, and white. So I'm looking for a corner that has three colors. Green, red, and white. There's this one over here. Let's bump this out of the way here. Okay, so this is going to come below here to come up like this. So this corner is just below here, so move it out of the way, bring this down, move it in, and bring it up. So this is good. Now I need green and red. So let's see, green and red. Here's green and red over here. Now which one is it? Should it be this one? Let's move them both in anticipation. Well, I'm going to say, is it going to be this green and red or this green and red? Only way to find out is just to put one in. But I see a large red here and a large green one here. So let's see what happens if I move. Oh, we'll do this one first. See what happens. Turn, 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 turn. And I can stop there because this one came in just fine. So like I say, I don't like to memorize exactly what's happening with this. But now this one is going to be green and red. I'm gonna ignore this color here because that's not the proper edge piece there. Green and red, green and red. Might even be this one. Maybe it's a dominant green. Don't want to overthink it too much, and bang. Okay, so there it is. So here's our first side. One of our 12 sides that we have to do. but we're going to do this once again layer by layer. So this becomes our bottom layer. This basically becomes, say, our layer down over here. So the next step with this is I'm going to start putting in edges all around here, and this is where I have to really concentrate because my perspective can get skewed. That this is my bottom layer, and the closer this is to become a tetrahedron, the more my perspective is really going to get messed up. So right now I need to put in the edge over here. What I'm basically doing is once I get one side here, I do all of these layers over here. Do this layer here, so I put these edges in over here. And that's kind of what I'm doing. So where's the other green one? Right up over here. So I'm going to wheel this around, move this into here. Okay, so this has to come down to here with the same algorithm that I use with a 3x3 when I'm doing middle edge placements. I put this here and I can see this doesn't belong here. So unless I did something wrong, if I place this here and then put it down, I can see this does belong here. So I'm going to do the algorithm to move this down to here. UI, LI, UL, UF, UI, FI, and that comes in here just fine. So now I've got green and red. And which one is it? I've got a whole boatload of green and reds to choose from. Rather than memorize each one of them, I'm just going to find a green and red and see if it works. Here's a green and red over here. Now, early on, I'm going to be doing a lot of playing around with where things are supposed to go. I'll move this down here and I'll see that this matches up pretty well over here. So, we'll go ahead and put this in cube style. UR, UI, RI, UI, FI, U, and F. So now that works, okay? Then red and red. So this is going to be one of those solid colors here, solid reds, red wedges. Here's one over here. Okay, now let's see if this one can match down to here because I have a couple to choose from, and I see that this seems to match. Maybe I got lucky. Turn, 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 and down you go. So we're working on this layer over here, red and white. Here's a red and white. Bring this here. This looks like it belongs here, so I dare say this probably isn't going to work, and it won't. However, I got this guy here. Get used to moving things back down. Okay, there's this red and white. This can't work over there. So this seems to fit here pretty well. So put this one in. Turn, 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 turn. So far, I'm not doing anything different than megaminx algorithms, which is no different at this point from cube algorithms. I'm solving it like a 3x3. So do we like this? Sure. Yeah, this is okay over here. And now finally, I'm down to the last edge piece of this layer. That's white and green. All right, here's a white and green that I can use. I can't get confused with where I'm at, as I'm apt to do. Okay, so does this belong here? I like this green here, but obviously that's not the right color. But what that tells me is that it's got to be a white with a dominant green, a large green. And that's not what this one is. It's what this one is. So let's bring this out. Sail this into here. And now we'll see if this white can match up to this, and it does. So now we'll just place this on this side here. So right now it's not hard for me to visualize this as a dodecahedron because it just looks like a blob, more just like a ball. Okay, so we've got this here. So what I have is the first layer, and then I've got all the edges attaching to the centers around that layer, which is the equivalent of doing this side and then doing this layer just above this side over here. So the next part, this is the part that takes a lot more concentration because this is the longest part of a megaminx solve. What I have to do now is, now that I've got the first layer, I've got the centers with the edges attached here, I need to put these three in, and that's how I usually do it. I go the next layer, which I take the centers, these centers here, and I put in the edges and then the corners. And that's going to mean a little bit of doing. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and find the edges. I put the edges in first and then the corners, keeping perspective on what I'm doing. So One would be potentially this. So this needs to come over here. So I'm just going to move this up. But let's turn this to an area that it belongs to. Not here. Not here. That's if it even fits. That looks okay there. So I'll turn this down and bring this down like so. So this doesn't seem to fit over here. So we don't like that. In all purposes, sense and purposes, it might belong over here. But I know that this is oriented correctly. So if it doesn't fit here, it's not going to fit here. So let's try this guy over here. So this is the kind of mixing and matching and seeing if we can make things work that makes this a little more challenging. Turn this down over here, and although this fits here nicely, it doesn't, well, I'm going to say it doesn't really fit here. So that's not correct. And this doesn't even fit along this side here too. So it's got to fit with one of them, and it likes this side, so it means that this must be wrong as well. So here's a third one. So maybe 3 is a charm. So I'll move this up. This one likes it over here, and bang. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to say that this is okay. I'm not 100% convinced yet. Maybe what I should do is, rather than make it fit with this and bring it down here, since there's too many degrees of freedom there, let's just focus on this guy here. Let's turn this upside down, and I'll move this in. And this actually feels better. I know it's hard to see, but you actually have to do it by palpating it, by feeling it. So now I just have to make it work with this guy here. So I'm going to turn this down, and turn this like so, and keep turning this around until it fits with this guy up here. And this looks pretty good. Okay, so I think we got ourselves a ball game over here. So now we find the white and brown. So what kind of brown belongs here? Well, it's going to be a large brown over here because this is a small triangle. So it's going to be a dominant brown here, and here's a white. So let's move this up here. And I'm just undoing everything that I have done. Okay. This doesn't quite belong here, but let's see if we can make it work. It's got to be here if it's going to work. So turn, and well, nope. Actually, I think maybe I found the one that belongs over here, or not. So we'll go turn, and down. So do we like it? I'm going to say no. Nope, this doesn't even fit over here. So I know that this isn't the correct one, so it's got to be the other white and brown, which is right over here. So put it out of the way. The other challenge with this is I can tell with a megaminx and even a hexaminx which one is my top side, but I can't really tell that so good here. So this has to correlate with this side over here if it's going to be next to this. Let's see if it does. Turn, and yeah, sure. Does it correlate with the brown? And yes. So what I'm looking at here is I'm looking at these two edges are in, these two edges here. So I need the corner here. Well, which one is it? It's going to be white and brown. So it's going to be this one. Well, only one way to find out. So this is going to be my top side here. So as you recall, when I was solving this, if this was the bottom layer here, I'm doing basically these guys here, the equivalent to these two edges in this corner, and I'd have to put the corner that I wanted in on the top side over here. So I'm doing these guys here. Just put these in. Now I'm putting this guy in over here. That's these two here, and now I'm putting this in. Find out where I'm at. So I move this corner down on the top side to where it's going to coincide with this guy. Move this to the top side. And just do RIDIs until I move this into here. RIDI, RD. You can see it's not quite right. Now this is if it's the correct one, and I suspect that it's not. I suspect that I need to have mostly white in it and not brown. Okay, yeah, so this isn't correct. So I'm going to move this back down so I don't get confused with that. I'm going to find, well, it's actually this one. Not too bad. Bring this over here, and same thing. Just roll it in, and now bring this back down. Straightforward megaminx solve, but it's difficult to remember where you're at. Remembering this is my bottom side over here. All right, so these are in, these two edge corner pairs, so now I'm going to move on over to this side here. because these centers are already taken care of, so now it's this. These are the centers that I'm moving into next, these guys, which is just surrounding the top layer over here. So this white, this happens to already be in, but this is rotated incorrectly because I can tell this is in and it looks like it's where it needs to be. This one has to rotate correctly, so let's actually take this out of the way for a second, turn it, and now I'm going to find the one that correlates best, which is like this. So that defines for me the orientation of this white one over here. So now I need to put this edge in. So it's going to be white and green. Here's a white and green over here. Maybe I'll get lucky and happen to find the right one. The best way to know is to see if this white correlates with this part of the center. Turn, turn, we like it. So turn, turn, and I just remember to turn everything back. So good and good. So now we've got these two edges in. I need to find this center, which is going to be white and green. Is it mostly white or mostly green? No, that's hard to say. I think it's going to be mostly white. So I think it's actually this. It's just flipped wrong. So I'm going to take this whole set here to this top. 1, 2. And with this top, rotate this around. R-I, D-I, R. D. R-I, D-I, R, D. This seems to fit in nice and snug over here, so move it back down. All right, are you lost yet? I am. So this is okay, this is okay. Now I come over to here. So I'm now looking for orange and greens, yellow and greens rather, and they're both yellow and greens. So that's gonna make it kind of challenging, I think. So let's move this up here, bring it out of the way, move this back down. So where does this belong? Does it belong here or here? Well, this might be upside down or whichever. So let's actually see where this matches up to. It doesn't belong here. So turn, doesn't belong here. Doesn't belong here. So I'm just randomly seeing where it likes to be the best. Here, it likes that pretty well. Does it correlate with the green? Not this one, and not this one, which means that this orange and green doesn't belong with any of them. But that can't be. It has to belong with one of them. So if it's not this one, it must be this one, but that doesn't make sense. So I think this probably belongs over here then. So I happen to find the one orange and green that doesn't belong anywhere. Well, it doesn't belong there anyway. Let's move this one up, turn and turn. So now I've got an orange and green here. So I'm going to try to correlate this with something. Let's see where this orange shakes out at. Bring it down here, nope. Down here, nope. You know, it looks like it's raised a little bit, so right over here, I think. All right, doesn't belong here. Must belong here, and I think it does. So this is good over here, so I think we found it. By trial and error, mostly error. If you're not doing enough errors, then you're not doing enough trials. The other orange and green, so there's one that I know that it's not, but I've lost track of it already. Anyway, we got this guy over here. Let's move this up. And now see if this orange comes to this side over here. And already I can tell that it's a pretty good likelihood. I just have to move it correctly. Okay, so this is good over here. This actually isn't good anywhere. But I know it's not this one because none of these match. So it's another orange and green, the only one that must be left over, which is this guy. Okay, so it's got to be this guy, which means it has to come over here. It has no choice. It has no free will in the matter. Anyway, so these two line up fine, so I've got these two edges in. Just to keep track, I did this center with these edges, now this. Now I need the orange and green. Here's an orange and green. Is it mostly orange or is it mostly green? Well, so it could be this one or it could be this one. Now I can try to be clever and try to figure it out, but I'm thinking that maybe it's going to be mostly green because I'm slowly filling in this green side. So I think it's probably this one over here. So let's just move this to the top. Okay, now that I have this to the top, I'm going to take this here and roll this in. R-I-D-I, R-D. Again, notice my strategies are not different. The challenge of this puzzle is perspective and finding things and knowing when what I'm dealing with is an apparent parity or not. So this fits nicely and bring this down into here. Okay, so let's take stock in everything so we don't lose track. There's our first side. All of these center edge pairs are done, and now I'm going off to the centers that are just below the top center here. This is done with the 2 edges in the corner, 2 edges in corner, 2 edges in corner. Now I'm ready to hit this guy. So now that remaining yellow and green, which is here, so I know this has to be what I'm looking for. So now it's just a question of where this coincides to here, not here. Here? Nope. Kind of has a little divot there. Here? Yeah, that looks good. And we have to, of course, move this back. Okay, so this is good. Now we need an orange and red. Here's an orange and red over here. Does it make sense? Yeah, we'll find out. But in any case, I can see that there's a large red here, large red here. Well, actually, no. The large red has to be over here. This has to be a solid red. So this has to be a dominant red, or at least a large red. In terms of the orange, it's got to be a small one, because this is a large orange here. There must be yellow. This is a large yellow here. There must be a small yellow. So I'm looking for large red, small yellow, possibly this guy here. So this yellow top is actually at my top. This is the top part of the puzzle. So let's see what makes sense here. 1, 2, bring it in here. 1, 2. Okay, that seems to work. So we like this. This is okay. Now I'm looking for a trifecta. I'm looking for 3 colored yellow, red, and green. Right over here. Happens to be at the top layer, so it must be this. So move this into here. R-I-D-I-R-D. And just keep doing that. RD. So this is really the same challenge as the hexaminx, but just a little more obscured. So there. So that's good over here. And let's see where we're at. Can't get confused. Remember, this was my first layer. Don't get confused by these guys. I'm slowly building these sides in. But this side defined my first layer. So this is good. This is done. And now we have this. And this was already done from here. Okay, so now we just have to do this. And this is the top layer here. And this is already done. Okay. So basically this one, I'm looking for one of these guys over here. And take your pick. It looks like this one probably lines up with that. So I'm going to say whichever one of these line up with this. Looks like this perhaps. Turn and, is that good? Sure, yeah. All right, that looks good. But as I look at it, this doesn't really look good over here. And honestly, that doesn't look so good there either. So I'm going to say no. So let's move this up and see what happens with this one. Okay, this one correlates. And this is okay. Okay, so we have this over here, so that is good. All right, now that that is done, now we got to put this one in, and there's only one left over. This guy. And it only has one place to go, so it makes things a little easier. Move this 1, 2, bring it in. It likes it. This triangle happens to be here. Now what made this easier is the fact that this has many places it can go. So anyway, this is in. So this slice is in, this edge and corner slice is in, and this is in.